Okay, so welcome to number 1 of 3. This is DIP, Design and Implementation Projects. You know all this stuff. I've changed this around just so you know. These are my office hours, so I'm in here literally. My plan is that I'll be in this room from 6 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There are no classes in here from 8 till 10, well, unless my wife bails me out for lunch. Like she called me today and said, I'm meeting you for lunch. So it'll be 6 to 12 and then 1 to 5. But, and then on Monday and Wednesdays, I'm only here from 8 till 12. So, but actually I get here at 6. So they started a new thing here too, you may or may not have heard. It's not like it's a big thing. It used to be that depending on who was working here and depending on who the custodian was, sometimes these doors would be open at 4 or 5 in the morning. They'd already be open. And I mean, one day I couldn't sleep, and I thought, well, I had to go, and I promised the first year people I was going to create a program for them, and I hadn't done it. So I came in. It was 4:15, and I thought, there's no way it'll be open. You know, I'll have to go and find somebody, and they're knocking on the walls and stuff. It was open. But now they've got one of those new key fob things, and supposedly I can apply for one. I guess any faculty member can apply for one. And now supposedly if you do that, they're still getting all the bugs out of it. But if I want, I can come in here on Sundays now. Now I don't want to come in here on Sundays. But the point is, if I needed a book or something, I can do that, which would be really nice, because there are times when I wish we had that. We didn't. So we'll see. All right, none of my particulars have changed. This is 152, 164. We meet in here 10 to 12, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, I don't feel like sending myself an email. No, it's okay. All right, yeah, thank you. As it says, this is designed to be a capstone class. You are going to create a project in here. That is going to be your assignment. On what? It's up to you. You can do something with PHP. You can do a website. All right, if it's going to be a website, I don't want it to be a simple website that only holds HTML. That's not a capstone. But if you do an HTML, or I'm sorry, if you do a website that's basically a PHP-driven website or an ASP.NET-driven website or something else, that's okay. All right? Some people have already talked to me about what they plan on doing. If you say, well, right now, if you say, I don't have any clue what I'm going to do a project on, that's fine too. You don't have to tell me for a while. And if you decide, well, I'm doing this thing in the class for the Android class, and I'd like to kind of explode it and have that be my project, that's okay. So you've got a lot of different avenues that you can go down. All right. This is the book. Now, I heard people talking this morning, and that's right, I got to do it for Mike and John also, but I will. I heard people talking this morning, and you said, how many of the books did you get, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one thing is, just so you know, and don't ask me how because it's one of those magical things, every single one of you in this class now has this on your H drive. And it's got the great thing, the name of it is 978013305 something or other, and it's this. So you all have that. Okay? Everybody in this room has that on your H drive. I guarantee it, because I double checked. It's all there. What we may end up using for the Swift class is another book that I found online, and that's this one right here. I mean, for some reason it always comes up like that, so I have to say single page view. And that's this one, Beginning iPhone Development with Swift, Exploring the iOS SDK. You have that one on your H drive. They're both there. You say, well, I already had copied them over. I didn't know that. I didn't check anybody, so I copied both those files over there this morning. So you all have them on your H drive. All right. This one is literally called Beginning iPhone Development with Swift. The other one is called, not that. It's got some weird number on it. 978, it's the ISBN number probably. 978013305, etc. All right? All right. Now I've got assignments approximately 4, and the only reason that I'm saying that is somewhere around week X, whatever X happens to be, I'm going to say, now you have to tell me what you're planning on doing your project on. And kind of like you did it for the WordPress class that most of you were in. You just had to give me a one-page write-up of what it was you were planning on doing. All right? Yeah, the Joomla. You're right. Joomla, not WordPress. Yeah, well, it'll be WordPress probably next time. You're right. It was Joomla. Yeah, so it'll be something like that, but we'll worry about that later. Depends on what it is. What I don't want to do is just, Mike came to me this morning and said what he's planning on doing, but he was very general about it, which is fine. But the point is, come a few weeks from now, I'll have something written up where I'll tell you to explain what you're doing. And if nothing else, just kind of mock it up what you're doing. And if you say I'm doing this, etc. I want it to be something that you are going to showcase, because in this class, please remember this, here's the first thing. What's 4 months from tomorrow? It's the last day of this class. 4 months from tomorrow. All right? And on that date, which is May 14th, that Thursday, you are going to each get up here and present for a minimum of 10 minutes. You aren't going to miss that day. Please. I mean, unless you really and truly are that sick, etc., I expect you to be here. And amongst the people that I'm going to invite, the people who came last year, I had a couple of the vice presidents from the college were here. My boss, the dean, the associate dean. Probably I'm going to invite our grant people and several people from our advisory committee. All right? And why? Because it's your chance to showcase yourself, especially for those external people, for people who it's not impossible that you might end up going and applying at their place. So at least they can see who you are. People ask, I know Denny Wright does this, and did I rip it off from him? He would say so, but no. But the point is, he has students, they have to wear sport coats, and the women are supposed to wear dresses, etc. I think you should be presentable. However, whatever you consider presentable to be. But again, this is your chance to get up here, and you will have people from the outside looking at you. So I think you should look presentable. But what I think is presentable, and what Teresa thinks is presentable, and what Travis thinks is presentable, etc., is different. All right, I had a guy come up here in 2 years ago. He had on a shirt that I would have been embarrassed to wear at home. It literally had holes. I mean, literally holes in it. And it wasn't, oh, that's trendy, like when the kids have the holes in their jeans. No, these were just holes from where? But he came up and he did his presentation, and he did a great job. All right? But, all right, just leave it at that. So what are we supposed to get out of this? You're going to have to create your requirements. You're going to have to turn your requirements into some kind of a design. You're going to have to turn your design into either a website or some kind of an app or something else. This, don't even worry about that. All right? And you're going to present it, and you're going to either create a website or you're going to do, an app. That's what this class is supposed to be about. It's a capstone class. Every teacher that I know of who has a capstone class does it differently. Some of them are real regimented. And what I mean by that is, I know teachers at this school, you do a capstone project, but what you do is probably the first half of the semester is you do the project as a class, and then you break off. And you kind of run with it in your own direction. Some instructors have you do it in teams. All right, now if Travis said to me, hey, Kelly and I really want to work together. We want to work on this thing together. I'm not saying it's possible or impossible. It's possible. Let's just put it that way. But again, it'd have to be written up like that. I don't really want there to be more than 2 people that are going to do that, though. Oh, we got this group. We got 5 of us. That just doesn't work. It doesn't. All right. All right. So this stuff is all the stuff that you've seen before in the past. So let's start by going here. And I'm going to quickly just go off to the P drive, and then we're going to go look at the new way, or the 2 new ways that you can get into the virtual desktop, because there's 2 ways now. We're going to look at both in just a minute. All right, so what's out here? When I find articles, I'm going to throw them out there. Your homework, when we have it, it'll be out here and on Blackboard, of course. The in-class, you'll notice there already is a folder out there, so we're going to actually go over Chapter 1 in just a couple minutes. PDFs, this is a different book that I found that it's an older book, just so you know, it's like 2000 something, but it's called PHP 5 Power Programming. I thought it was a decent book, so it's another one that's out there. There are no PowerPoints. This is the source code from his book. One thing I'm making it my goal this semester, I'm not saying I'm going to be able to fulfill it, but I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to make his code work. All right? None of it worked for Chapter 1. All the stuff that's in here, that all does work. All right? I fixed it this morning, and I'm working on the Chapter 2 stuff. All right? So we'll see as we go on. Syllabus, you all know about that. The course evaluation, you all know about that. Now, one of the things that we're told to do in here is, I think the administration here does an excellent job of providing more work for instructional staff to do. I think that's one of the things that they do exceptionally well here. One of the things that we were told at our in-service was, well, you've got to make it easier for students. And I thought, okay, how? And it was, you've got to present a schedule that tells what you're doing every day. And we have to start doing this in fall, and it has to be part of our syllabus. That's not going to run into any problems like if we have a snow day or if the instructor's sick or whatever, or you need more time on something, because supposedly you're held to it. All right? So I gave, and I noticed what I called it, version 1, because it probably will change, but this is what I plan on doing. I'm going to go over Chapter 1 today. Chapter 2 on Thursday. Next week, same way, 3 and 4. Next week, 5 and 6. Next week, 7 and 8. So notice by that time, we're only on the 5th of February. All right? Then we're going to go over Chapter 9 for the entire week. That's actually a CMS. All right? That's actually a PHP object-oriented CMS, and we're going to spend a week on that. Then here, that Tuesday, the 17th, we're going to go over Chapter 14, which is on testing. What that means is, from the stuff that I mentioned to you, and if you look on here, we're going to cover Chapter 1, Advanced PHP Techniques, 2, Developing Web Apps, 3, Advanced Database, 4, Basic Object-Oriented Programming, 5, Advanced Object-Oriented Programming, 6, More Advanced Object-Oriented, 7, Design Patterns, 8, Using Existing Classes, and 9, CMS with OOP. So that means I'm not going to lecture in here on 10, 11, 12, or 13. Chapter 10 is networking with PHP. It's more hardware-oriented. Chapter 11, if we had a working server and everything was cool in here, we might do something like that, but I'm not going to. Chapter 12 shows how you can do PHP stuff from the command line, all right, which is an interesting read, but I don't see the need to go over it. And Chapter 13 is one you may want to look at yourselves if you get some time because it goes over a little bit more on XML. I am going to go over Chapter 14, which is on debugging, testing, and performance. So you see what the schedule is. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, if we follow that, and again, we'll do the best we can. I'm assuming here no sick days for the instructor, no snow days, etc. Okay? So what that would mean would be, and I'm not sure when our break is in here, but I think it's sometime in March, and I think it's about the 3rd week, but I don't remember for sure, and I believe, and I could be wrong here, I think Easter this year is in April. All right? So what I'm saying is if you look here, by the time we get to March, you're going to be working on your projects. Okay? Now, one of the things that I've been told, not just me, a lot of us got hit on this for lack of better words, is you take attendance every frigging day in every frigging class. And one thing that we're supposed to do, like for example, Zach is not here today. Kelly was here, but he left. Okay? And I don't know if there's anybody, and the other guy who's missing is Dave, who was the guy who was in here at the end of last semester, and he was doing his Joomla thing over here. Well, Dave's got a full-time job. He works, I think, for Janesville newspapers. So he's been doing stuff, taking the classes, but doing them based on the tapes. All right? But the point is, what I'm supposed to do is people who aren't here, because again, another good thing that administration did was they said, okay, faculty, we want you to start emailing and calling these students who aren't getting there and welcoming them and telling them that we miss them. Yeah, because I think that would sound very heartfelt coming from me anyway. But at a minimum, what I'm supposed to be doing is emailing people who aren't here and let them know, hey, class has started. I had one student yesterday who emailed me in the afternoon. I don't know him. He's a first-year student, and he said, Mr. Scott, I'm really sorry. He said, no excuse. I just misread it. I thought the classes were Tuesday, Thursday. That happens. Okay? I had another guy who missed the first class. It was Eric. You know, Eric sits over here, and he came to the second class because he thought it was Tuesday, Thursday. And then one of his friends, Micah, sent him an email and said, hey, dude, where the hell are you? He's like, I'm at home. Why? Because you just missed one class, and now you're about to miss the other one. So he busted butt, and he got over here. All right? But again, even though we keep hiring more and more people in our student services department, we're supposed to be doing that. So, okay, I'll do that as best I can. You know what? It's on my to-do list. So whenever I have time, that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay? So you should have all of March, all of April, and half of May to work on these projects. All right? So I'm saying this, no joke, no nothing. These ought to be damn good. Okay? That's how you're getting graded in here. You will be delivering it in stages. So I feel it's my right at almost any time to say, Mark, where's your project right now? Let me see what you're working on. I don't want it where it's the 13th of May and somebody says, yeah, I better start on that thing. I'm presenting it tomorrow. Now, some people in here are able to actually do that, and they're that good that they can do it in a night. They can pull an all-nighter and make it be pretty darn good. I don't want that. I don't deserve that. You don't even deserve that, to do that to yourselves. Any questions on this schedule? Again, ideally at least, we'll be able to stick to it totally. All right? So, I'm going to jump right into Chapter 1 then. Okay? And after we get done with Chapter 1, if there's still time left in the period, it's your time to do whatever you want to do with it. Okay? Go ahead. Oh, yes. Yes, let's look at that. Thank you. All right. We've got a new client. See that? Okay. You should all have that on your desktop. So if you do double click on it, unfortunately, and this is something I like that I don't think is on here any longer, it comes up like this. You double click on that, and notice when it comes up, it doesn't say anymore, do you want to be logged in using your current login? See that? You have to log in regular. Okay? I'm not going to do that because I'm already on the virtual desktop. But does that make sense to everybody? You just log in. So that's the same way we've always been doing it. The other way, and you can all do this right now. If you're not in the virtual desktop yet, you can all do this. Because what's new is it's possible now for you to get to the virtual desktop from a browser. Okay? And it's desk, sound familiar? Desktops.blackhawk.edu. And you can get to it from a browser that way. Now, according to Terry, who was in here talking to the first-year people yesterday, Terry Prindle, our virtual machine engineer, virtual desktop engineer, this is not as robust. See what I'm saying? So, Teresa asked a question because she was in my class yesterday. She said, well, does the old client still work with this? You know, if you loaded it last year on your own home machine. And Terry's response, I know this isn't exactly what he said, but try it. I don't think it's going to work as well as you going out there and downloading the new client on your own machine. But he said if you want to try it, if you're comfortable with that, you can. Now, just so you see this, if I come out here again, we're going to go over all that stuff in just a second, but if I go out to blackhawk.edu, I want you to see this. It used to be when you went out to blackhawk.edu and you clicked on online services right there, come on, and you clicked on online services, all right, that one of the things that was in here was virtual desktop. It's not there anymore. Well, yes, it is. Now you've got to click information technology again, and then virtual desktops. Okay? So you go in there, click on virtual desktops, same kind of junk you saw before. You read all that, you agree to it, you click I agree, and now this is the thing in here. Now notice it says HTML access or client. what you'll want to do is if you want to download the client like you've had last time, you want the one on the left. You hear what I said? That's the one that you'll want. Yes, if you want to put that on your machine. So you go to here, install VMware View Client. I don't even want to click it because yesterday he was having me demonstrate in front of the class, and he goes, now click this button. Not this one. Click this button. So, of course, I clicked the wrong one. In the whole class, I think, am I speaking out of turn here, Teresa? They all liked it because I screwed up. All right? I did not understand what he was saying. I don't know why, but I brain farted. All right? So I knocked myself right out of the virtual desktop. So he couldn't show anything to anybody. So it was, but that's what you do. So again, you should be able to do that. Notice that you should be able to do the desktop.blackhawk.edu from home. All right, without even having to have the client on your machine. That's what he says, at least. I didn't try it from home. Yes. No. Teresa asked that question yesterday, and what I heard from Terry was, if you install, it'll install and basically get rid of the old one for you. Yeah. Now, I did have a student, Morgan Heller, who emailed me this morning and said they were having a problem because it didn't seem to be an option anymore in there for the Mac, and they have a Mac. That I don't know about, so I sent that right over to the help center. So if that's a situation with any of you, all right, you're all thinking, no, Mac's a four-letter word. But if that's the case, I'll check on that and I'll let you know once I know. All right. So again, you can get to there either way. Okay. Thank you for bringing that back up. All right. So now let's go over start on chapter 1. What this is going to do, by going over these 9 chapters, or 10 really, including 14, is I'm not going to hurry through any of this stuff. There were a lot of times last semester in a lot of the classes I felt like I got to get this done. And I may have had 2 hours and 4 hours worth of material. I don't think that's going to be the case most of the time now. So we can look at some of this stuff. Now when you look here, I'm not going to talk much at all about multi-dimensional arrays. Multi-dimensional arrays, 2-dimensional arrays, 3-dimensional, etc., whatever you call them, that, or an array of arrays, whatever you want to call them. People either seem to love them and use them a lot, or just despise them and use them as little as they possibly can. So we'll talk about them, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about them. All right? When we get to here, page 17, this advanced function definitions, and I'm just for a second, I'll go back, but I'm going to turn up to there. That section talks about recursive functions, static variables, accepting values by reference, and anonymous functions. Those are all important topics. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on each one of those. Oops. All right, we'll talk a little bit about here, Doc. It looks a little weird. It is a little weird. And there's even something that I think is discussed in the book, but they mention it like in a sentence. Okay? When you think of here, Doc, think of basically double quotes or single quotes. Understand what I'm saying? And as we start to talk about that. But they also came up with something new, that instead of here, Doc, they have something that's called now, Doc. And now, Doc only handles single quotes. So we'll talk about that when we get to that point. All right? We'll talk a little bit more about printf. I'm not going to spend much time on printf because we spent a lot of time on it last semester in the C class. I think you all understand printf. It works virtually the same way in here that it does in C. All right, so we'll look at a couple of examples. What we didn't really talk about last semester, but I will talk about a little today, is something called sprintf. All right, and it means a lot of different things, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point. So you notice the first chapter is around 40 pages long, all right, approximately, okay? So, again, we'll spend some time talking about those terms. And what I want to do in here is I want to go over the examples. I don't expect that you probably will have gone through those examples, but I will tell you what you'll have to do in order to get those examples to work, all right? The other thing I want to mention, and hopefully I can remember to keep doing this throughout the semester, is if I go into the in-class folder for this, there's today. Okay, so what's in there? Well, notice I've got some URLs, so I'm going to try to keep doing this. And you may not care, but if you want more, What I'm not doing in here, when you look, I'm not going to give you a URL from a manual. Because if all I do is put the PHP manual in there, that's a waste of your time. You can go to the manual yourself and find it. I've been using this site that I think is actually pretty good. It's called elated.com, and they've got a lot of smaller, kind of crisper articles on different things. So you'll notice for this printf and sprintf, the recursive functions, and for the anonymous functions, I went to the elated.com for each one of those. And I do just what you would do. In other words, I go out to Google, and I Google the term, and then I start looking through the ones that are there, and I'll usually pick something out that's on the first page. All right. So again, as we start going through this, here doc, now doc, printf, sprintf, etc. Someday I'll learn how to swallow. All right. There are several examples in this chapter. The big thing to worry about here when you start to talk about multi-dimensional arrays. Arrays are really easy to work with. They really are. Single-dimension arrays are very easy to work with. And when you work with single-dimension arrays, there's all sorts of ways that you can sort them. Okay, there actually is a sort function. If you use associative arrays, if you remember, that have the key value pairs, there's k-sort for key sort, etc. So there's a lot of ways that you can do sorting, but it's much harder typically to sort a multi-dimensional array as it is to sort a single-dimensional array, because it's a more complex data structure. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody when you hear that. All right. What we do in here, among other things in this chapter, is you create something that looks similar to what you see right there. A to-do list. It's kind of some of the examples that he gives are real simplistic. That's not what's important. What's important is are the topics that he's going over. All right. He also mentions in here, so just so you see this, notice in here, this line right here, and this line right here, you'll notice they're identical as far as what they mean. So you can set up an array by saying the name of your array equals array paren paren, or you can say the name of your array equals bracket bracket. That creates a new empty array. And I'm going to suggest, for lack of better words, that you use this one, because as you're going to see when we get into more of the Swift stuff, that's more Swift looking. Now, if you like doing it this way, by all means, do it the older way. There's nothing wrong with doing it the older way. And hopefully you remember this from last semester or whenever you took the class. This is an example right here, and there's 3 lines, but I'll just highlight the first one. That's, if you look at what's in here, there is a key and a value, etc. If we take this, which right here would represent an associative array, and we put that in an array, then what we have is an array of arrays. A lot of the talk that you hear in a lot of programming languages, they'll say, we don't support multi-dimension arrays, but what we support are an array of arrays. It means the same thing. All right, so it really doesn't matter which one you're talking about or which term you use. So some of the first programs that we run, this is what the output's going to look like. And you look at it and you go, well, that's not in any kind of order. I would disagree with you. It is in order. It's in order based on key in ascending order. Does that make sense? If we had done it, and when I say key, it's on key 1. If we did it based on key 2, we'd say, no, it's not in any kind of order. But we could do it based on key 2, and we could have this. I guess that actually is in reverse alphabetic order, right? But if we had blah, then this, then this, then that, it would be in that ascending order. So we'll talk about some of that stuff. And he gets into a lot of that in here. Okay, again, it's not my intention to read. My hope is, now notice he says, if you want to sort an array based on the first key, this is a way that you can do it right here. Now this might look a little funky, but that said, the logic that's in there should make sense to you. What that's going to do is as you pass in two values, it's going to sort them, in this case, if number 1 is greater than number 2, so it's sorting them basically in descending order. Does that make sense? All right. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, in other words. All right, he's showing you a way of doing it. And when you get done, notice again, now we have it based and we have it in order. All right, and it's in order when you look at it, either it's in descending order based on key 1, or it's in ascending order based on key 2, depending on how you write this. Now, it's going to be much easier if you want to start working with this stuff and working with multi-dimension arrays, and you want to be able to sort on different things, to use the associative array and not the numeric type of array, where this instead would be array sub 1, or sub 0, array sub 1, and array sub 2, etc. All right. So this is the first one that he has in here. All right. And I will tell you, I would like everybody to do this. If you're not in the virtual desktop, please get into the virtual desktop right now. Please bring up XAMPP right now. And I'll give you a second to do that. It'll just make our lives much easier, okay? We won't get done with this. We'll get a good start on this, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll finish it up, but we'll still probably be done somewhere, I would guess, around 11:30, all right? I'm just going to continue on in the Android class, and if you go, what does that mean? You'll see it when we get in there. Swift, we're going to talk about it, because I've got 4 different scenarios that we can follow, all right? The problem is, again, if there's 11 people in the class and I have 4 scenarios, and 2 vote for number 1, 2 vote for number 2, 2 vote for number 3, etc. But I'm going to tell you what I think we should do. And then you can come back and say, yeah, I agree, or no, I don't agree. Okay? All right. Now, I'm taking for granted, since I asked you to do that, that we're all in there and we're all into XAMPP. Okay? All right. The first thing I'd like you to do then is when you're at your virtual desktop, what I'd like you to do is double-click on Computer, double-click on your P drive, double-click on CIS, double-click on the class number, which is 152.164, double-click on Spring 2015. So you go, what? Oops. All right. So in other words, and you've done this countless times in my classes before, go out to here. That should be plenty big. Once you go out to there, all right, in fact, go one more, go to the in-class folder. And once you go into the in-class folder that's right there, grab the one with today's date on it, 1/13/15, right mouse click, drag it onto your desktop, please, and choose Copy Here. So please copy that folder to your desktop. All right. As far as what's in that folder, again, there's that URL list and the stuff from Chapter 1. All right. Everybody's done that? I'm correct? No problem with it or anything? Okay. So what I'd like you to do next, and I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm not going to do it because I already have, is on your desktop, I'd like you to open up the folder with today's date on it. Let me minimize this. I'd like you to open up the folder with today's date on it. Right mouse click on the CH01 folder. Do a copy, or you can do a cut if you want. That's up to you. Then go out onto your C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, and drop that CH01 folder right in there. And what I'm going to ask is for Kelly, and then hopefully for Zach, in case they come next time and they don't hear this, etc., that we all bear with them if they need a second or two to go in there and do that themselves. All right? Now, any problems with that? I want to hear everybody say no. Everybody problems with that? Good. All right. There was? Yeah. What do you mean? There's nothing in it, or what? Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I don't want this there. I don't want you to copy that there. I just want Chapter 1 there. Yes, because that's why I said, because I'm already working ahead. All right. No, it's a good point. Mark said yours shows all these. No, don't move those yet, because I'm fixing them up as we go there. Chapter 2 is half fixed. Chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 14 aren't done yet. All right, but I did that so I remember to put that stuff in there later. Okay. All right. So what's in there? You can go in. You can go in now in the XAMPP and open up this folder. Don't bring these up into XAMPP yet. Don't bring the files up because they won't work until we do one more thing. Okay. So hopefully your screen looks kind of like this. Then I would like you to right mouse click on your CH01. That's the SQL file, the one almost right in the middle here. Right mouse click on it and choose Edit with Notepad. This is not my brainchild. This is Larry Ullman's brainchild right here. What's that? No, don't update. Don't worry about that. Yeah, yeah, that's from Notepad. That's not. That's just saying that Notepad's got a earlier or later, thing. Just don't worry about it. Now, you probably already know this, but those are comments. Okay. I literally grabbed his stuff. He wants you to use a built-in database that actually exists and you already have out there called test. I don't like that. I want you to create your own database. So I call it's a database for tasks. So I called it task DB for task database. Doesn't matter if the DB is uppercase, the whole thing can be in uppercase. And that should be use task. If yours says task DB here, it better say task DB there. If for some reason I screwed up and it says task in one and tasks in the other one, change it so these two things are identical. Everybody hear that? Please change it if you have to. The caseness doesn't matter, but they have to be spelled exactly the same. So if one says TASK DB and the other says TASKS DB, please fix it. If you go, no, mine both say the same, then you're good. What this is going to do, as you can see, it's going to create a new database. It's called TaskDB. Then make it active. Then it's going to create a single table in there that's called tasks. All right? That single table will have a primary key of task ID. All right? It'll have another key that's called parent ID, which will become more apparent when we start working on it. The actual task that you want to do, the date that you put that task out there, and the date that you completed that task. Does all that make sense? Is there anything in there that doesn't make sense? Because this is the time to ask. Like I said, we're taking it slow, especially when we start. Then we're creating our primary key, and we're creating indexes. Again, this is Ullman stuff. This is not Jeff's. The only thing I changed in here was I moved it out so it read a little better, and I changed that from where he had test, I changed it to task DB. Yes. The question was, no, it's not a dumb question at all. Why are these int unsigned? Even if you use auto increment like this, I shouldn't tell you this because it's a bad thing to tell you, but even if you have auto increment, you can still manually go and put numbers in there, even though you've got it set to auto increment. Does that make sense? You should never do that, but you can. Now, if you've already got IDs 1, 2, and 3 in there, and you try to manually put in another 3, you'll get an error. But if you manually put in 4, it'll do it. And you say, that's fine, Jeff, you're not answering my question. Think about it, I am. You can even put negative numbers in there. What this is saying is none of your IDs can be negative. That's all. No, it's a good question. And this is, remember, this is just one way with the timestamp. All right, that's just one way that you can set up date fields and date and time. What this is going to do, because I've already created mine, but I just want to show it to you. All right, so when we come through here, and you're not going to have to do it the same exact way that I do it. I'll show you what I did in just a minute, because I've got all my stuff here that I've been working on, and when I got it all to work. But notice that this one says not null. This is automatically going to set the timestamp up for you when you go in and create it. But just because you added a task True or false? There's a chance it's not completed yet. So you could literally leave that blank if you wanted to. That's all it's saying. All right. So what I did was I went in here. I started to create some of those tasks. You know, just like we talked about. This looks really ugly. I cleaned that up a little bit. But if you look in here, here's where I created all my tasks. All right. And none of them were completed. Then I went in and completed one, and you'll see how that date changed. Does that all make sense? Hopefully that's pretty apparent as far as what's going on in there. All right, or if it's not, it will be once we get going. Okay? All right, so what you can do then is if you made those changes, first save, so everything is cool, and then highlight everything. I don't care how you do it. If you do a Control A, if you do an edit, select all, it doesn't really matter, but select everything, okay? So copy everything, highlight everything, and then copy it. So I like to do a Control A and a Control C to copy. I like doing it that way. You may not like it, so do it whatever way you want. Then what I'd like you to do is go back into here. Yeah, I want you to actually go back here. To me, this is the safest way of doing it. All right, so you're at your XAMPP control panel. Click Shell. Get into MySQL with MySQL minus U root. Hit Enter, and you're in. If you have any problems doing that, let me know. You shouldn't. Yes, click Shell. We could have done this through admin and MySQL and done it through PHP-MyAdmin. I don't like creating databases that way. If you do, you could do it that way also. Everybody get in. Anybody have a problem getting in? Then in your black box, so to speak, right here, right mouse click and choose paste. And that'll throw in all the stuff that we just put in there. Now mine says can't create it. Why? Because I already have it. All right. All right. Yeah, yes, I will. All right. I'll get out and do it all over again. Click Shell, MySQL, minus U root. All right? Right there. That'll get you into MySQL. So put that in. Remember, that says we're going in as root without a password. Everybody remember that? MySQL minus U root. All right? That worked? All right. So then, once you're here, you right mouse click, and you should be able to choose paste and put in everything that you just copied to the clipboard. You don't want to do a Control V because then it puts a Control V on your screen. So right mouse click inside of the box here and choose paste. No, you were supposed to have copied this. Not a problem. You were able to do that? Any problem doing that? That it didn't work for whatever reason. You got an error message for whatever reason. Now if you come in there and you put that in, and remember if you say show databases, it should show task DB as one of your databases. That's always a way to check. Then just hit enter. Yeah, if your cursor's just sitting there at the bottom, hit enter. Yeah, and then just type in show databases. So we're not in a hurry. It's not a problem. All right. Now, remember how we make our task DB database active? How do we do that? You show databases, semicolon. If you hit enter and you're on a line by itself, just put the semicolon in there and hit enter again. Just get used to, remember if you are working here on the command line, get used to always putting in a semicolon at the end of your commands. That's why another reason a lot of people don't like to use this. They like to use PHP-MyAdmin because you can put in semicolons, but you don't have to. Now, did that work for everybody? What didn't work? on a second. All right, you may or may not remember this, but if we want to make that database active, we have to say use followed by the name of the database. So it's use task db semicolon. And if you all look up on the screen here for a second, because a couple of you already gotten hit by this, but everybody does sooner or later if you work from the command line. Notice I didn't put the semicolon in. That command allows me to do it without a semicolon. This command does not. So if it's sitting there like that, it means that you haven't terminated the command. So all I have to do then is just put in a semicolon, and it works. All right? Okay, so now I'm using that database. So I can say show tables. You don't have to do this. You can just look up on the screen here. So I've got one table in there that's called tasks. Describe tasks. All right, it looks pretty ugly because there's a lot of junk in it. And it's not wide enough, unfortunately. All right, but if we look at it, there's the task ID, which is our int, unsigned. None of these can be null, it looks like. We've got a primary key. We've got indexes set up on these. We've got a default for our parent ID. We've got a default for the current timestamp, etc. Okay, so we've got all that stuff set up. Now, we should not need to. I mean, literally, we could close this right now if we wanted to. I'm going to recommend you keep this open so that as we go and put stuff in, you can go back. So right now, if you do this on yours, and you can do this to make sure, but if you say select star from tasks, yours should come back and say no records found or no records selected because it's a brand new table with nothing in it. That makes sense? Mine has already got stuff in it. So if you do want to go back later and double check as we start adding records to make sure stuff works, you can do that. So the command is just select star from tasks. And everything you do in here is case insensitive, so I always put everything in lowercase. All that makes sense? Okay. All right. Let me jump back to the book. I'm only going to go for about 4 more minutes, and we're taking a break. So this first script that's right here, let's take a look at what's in it. Here's your typical, so we've embedded PHP inside of HTML. So there's our HTML on the outside, so here's where our PHP starts. All right, so they're creating an array starting here in line 20. So when we look at this, that's the entire array right there. So what do we have? you can see already that it's an associative array, okay? And it has in there what? So each one of these is an array that's made up of what? We've got a name and a grade, a name and a grade, a name and a grade, etc. All right? And what we're going to want to do when we get done with this is to be able to sort based on either the person's name or the person's grade. Does all that make sense? But there's a little bit more complexity added onto it, because what this is instead of creating an array that had these values in there, we've got an array of arrays. And that array on the outside, that's the key for that record. That's the key for that record. That's the key for that record, etc. Does that make sense? It's an array of arrays. Now, this, if you said to me, how did they ever come up with 256, 2, etc.? I don't know. Think about it, though, because it actually makes sense in that, what if this was your BTC ID number? 0000123455 or something like that. And then array, name, Mark, maybe I have the whole name in there. Mark Lestarge, grade 100. So I'll take a question. Does that make sense, the way they're setting it up? I'm not saying do you like it that way. He's trying to demonstrate a multi-dimensional array. That's the idea. Does what he's doing there make sense? Question. Yes. I think yeah, I think that it is. The question was, can you do this in the newfangled way? And could you have just a bracket there and brackets inside of it? The answer is, I believe so. Yes. And I think if you went to the manual, they'd tell you that for sure. All right. Okay. So here's your sorting function. That's for the name. All right. So notice you have to put in there name, because that's what we called here. That's what we call that particular element, all right, or that particular field, whatever you want to say. That key there is called name. So this will put them in ascending order based on name. And notice we've got here string case compare. When you do a string case compare, you compare two values. Think about this, okay? And let's do it. Let's look at this two ways. Then we're taking a break. All right. So I've got in here Jeff, and I've got in here Mark, okay? And I'm just pretending right here. So Jeff got an 80, and Mark got 100. So in other words, this is name, this is name, this is grade, and this is grade. Does that make sense to everyone? All right? So if we sort the first one, it should already be in order, because Jeff comes before Mark. All right, if we do the second one, though, we're told to do it in descending order. So it should actually flip them. It shouldn't give me the 100, but it should reorder them. Does that make sense? So Mark should come first, because Mark grade 100 should come before Jeff grade 80. Does all that make sense? Plus, if we wanted to, if we look at this right here, it says function name sort. All right, and we're going to look at that in just a minute, because it's in here someplace. All right, so there it is, return string case comparison. We actually could end up writing this, instead of the way they've written it, we could do something more like this. We could do them both in ascending or both in descending, if we wanted to. All right, but what I want to show you is this. I want to make sure you understand this. We've talked about it in other classes. You may or may not remember it. All right, so I showed you all this stuff, and I'm going to come down here a little bit. Come on. And I'm going to again put in Jeff, and I'm going to put in Mark. All right? If I compare these two, what the system does is, and I've given you this fancy schmancy word before, it does what's called a lexicographical sort. So what it does, for lack of better words, is it lines the two of them up. And it says, okay, I'm going to compare J and M. Okay? That's what I'm doing. And, well, I know that J comes before M, so in other words, J is less than M. Does that make sense? If, on the other hand, we had done it the other way, so if we had Mark first and then Jeff, now M comes before J. So this one right here, when you compare Jeff to Mark, this is literally, typically, it's going to return -1, which means the first one is less than the second one. This one's going to return +1, which means that the first one is greater than the second one. And this, anybody want to guess what that one's going to return? 0. And that's what we're telling it to do as it's doing that comparison. So it's comparing the values and it's swapping them as necessary. All right? And that's literally what's happening in there. Yeah. Yes. Yes, it goes all the way through. In fact, let's look at this case. That's your spelling. That's my brother's spelling. I do have a brother, Mark. So it's going to say they're the same, they're the same, they're the same. That one's less. And what if you had this? For some reason, you had somebody named Mar. They're not even the same size. What it does then is it automatically comes in here and it space pads. It automatically does that. It makes them the same size before it starts the comparison. So if I had Mark and I wanted to compare Mark with Marcus, it would change and it would add space to that one, so they were the same size. That's all done by the system for you. Does all that make sense? All right, the other thing to think about in here is this says string case. That means we don't care what case. So if there's an uppercase M for Mark and a lowercase j for Jeff, we don't care. Does that make sense? It's a case insensitive comparison. Then for the grades, they're numbers. So we're saying put them in descending order. All right, so have less B than Y. And what that's going to end up doing, literally, like we said, if we run it on this one, it's going to have 98.5, then 94, then 85.1, and we have no control over which of these will come first. Then the other 85.1, then 74.6. And if we do the names, as you'd guess, John, Rob, Stephen, Steve, and Vance. Does all that make sense? And that's really all that we're doing. All right. And then when we run this, you notice what we get. It says define the multiple array, and it goes through this. I'm just not using, that's how they explained it. I showed it to you the other way. But this is what he's showing you. There's by name. John, Rob, Stephen, Steve, Vance. Exactly what we think it would be. All right. And then we have it by grade. 98.5, 94, 85, all right, 70, 85.1. We have no guarantee here that Vance is going to come before Steve. Does that make sense? The only way you could make sure would be like we did in the database class where we sorted on more than one field. We could do that too. It'd be a little bit more work, but we could do it that way. All right? All right. So this is a good spot to stop. It's 11 o'clock. Let's come back at 11:10. We're going to pick it up here on this page. All right? And you might think, we're never going to finish it. Just trust me, we will. All right? Remember, we spent the first half hour just going over the semantics of the class and having you copy a bunch of stuff. It'll pick up.